Hello, my name is Georgianne Ford with the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation. And today we have one of our attorney mediators returning, Mike Routh. Mike, thanks for coming back.
Hi, Georgianne. How are you today?
Good. And Mike, you're going to talk about what is a legal separation, which sounds so basic, but I think we'll all be listening to this.
Right.
Tell us.
So I was presented with this question earlier on this week, and I thought it would be a good topic for us to discuss today because everybody seems to be confused about this. And when you Google this, you got to make sure that you're looking at the laws from the state of Pennsylvania and not what's being said in another state, because the simple answer is Pennsylvania does not recognize a legal separation. So you cannot get legally separated here in Pennsylvania. You're still considered married up to the point that the divorce decree is issued. So a lot of people come, and they're basically asking this question. Well, we're not quite sure if we want to go through with the finalization of divorce. So can we, can we recognize this legal separation, like a trial period that they want to have? And so basically here in Pennsylvania, there's nothing in the law that says that you can't live separately as a married couple. And one of the first questions that people immediately bring up is, well, if I leave our marital residence, well, then I've abandoned, my children, I've abandoned the house, I've abandoned the property. And,
exactly.
And that's just not the case. There is a abandonment piece within the state of Pennsylvania, within the statutes that cover divorce in the state of Pennsylvania, but it is a very high standard. So if you leave for a good cause, right? So go back to that good cause as basically for the betterment of my family, right? Like mom and dad aren't getting along. Maybe it would be more healthy if one of them left. They're not abandoning the property. They're still gonna, see the children. They're still gonna be around. An abandonment would be if they just disappeared and they were, out of contact or just wanted to have nothing to do with the children or the house, etc. So Pennsylvania does allow for you to move out of that marital home and, live separately for a period of time. If that's what you choose, if you feel like it would be in the best interest of the family. So really that's what you have to look at.
So you're saying that there's really no ramifications if we have cause or I have cause to say this isn't a good situation.
Right. Right. You really have to look at, that cause piece of it. And determine what the reasons are why you're leaving. I always come back to if it's, so we're sane, right? So if there won't be any threat of emotional, physical, or abuse, maybe that is a good reason to move out. Maybe you are protecting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So some people get stuck. They feel like they have to stay, and then they continue to expose themselves to that emotional and physical abuse, and that certainly is not helping the situation. That leads to the down the road to and I don't know if we want to go down this tangent, but then you start being exposed to whether you need these PFAs, these protection from abuses being filed, and we start walking that line of domestic violence. So really, getting back to what we were talking about originally, if it is of importance to protect yourself, then maybe you should consider leaving. And you're not going to be considered of having abandoned your family at that point.
Okay. So there's no such thing as legal separation.
Right. So
in Pennsylvania.
Right. So people often, come to us too. They want a separation agreement. And that's all fine. You can draw up a contract that basically says, hey, this is how we're going to divide our assets and debts. I had some people that were asking me about dating during this separation period, and I had to caution them a little bit with the understanding that you are still considered married. So, make sure that you have an understanding that this is what you're going to do. It's always best to wait until you're divorced before you start looking to date other people and getting involved with other relationships. But, you can always draw up a contract that kind of states on, how we're going to behave during this separation period and establish a separation date. And that can be recognized, right? That can be used as evidence in the future.
What's the value of establishing a separation date?
Well, so the separation date, it is important. This is kind of where people get confused about Pennsylvania, since we don't recognize legal separation, but yet they still require you to establish a separation date, um, for a divorce filing. They basically say the separation date is when we stopped acting as a married couple. So creates a whole other gray area, because that can involve several different ideas, right? Are we still living together physically? Or are we still spending money together? Are we operating out of that same joint account? Or are we doing stuff together as a family? So that whole when we stopped acting as a married couple is very gray. But if you do write up that separation agreement and you say, hey, as of May the 12th, 2022, we're separated, then you'll have something to go on should you decide to continue with the divorce. It helps you in a couple different ways, because it does establish a date, and that date is important when we look at the division of financial assets here in Pennsylvania, because we are looking at marital property, and marital property is considered everything from the marriage date all the way through a separation date.
Wow.
So it is of value to establish.
So no such thing as legal separation, but you do want to establish the separation date.
Right, and I think that's the confusing piece of this, because we still need to do it, yet we're still not being recognized as being legally separated. And I guess so we can separate our money, we can separate how we want to act around each other and everything, but we're still here in Pennsylvania. We still have that legal ties of the marriage, right? So we're still responsible for that other person in their actions, because we're still considered a married couple. So I think that's kind of the difference that we have to recognize.
So I'm just wondering, the people that come for the mediation, just for a consult, I want to know more about this, or we've decided to go this route. It doesn't matter whether they're separated or not.
No. And really, people always come in and they're not quite sure about that separation date. And, through mediation, since we are working together, it's really going to be what's reasonable for both parties, right? So we sit down and we have a conversation about when we kind of think we stopped acting as a married couple. And sometimes, even the conversation will go further into, well, how does this affect us financially? And if the parties are willing to work together, then it becomes less and less of a big deal. It just becomes a date that we need to include for the divorce filing.
Right. Which is really when the official divorce happens.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Is there anything else that we should know about when people, there is no topic of legal separation, but we can do a legal agreement if we want to start splitting up assets.
Right.
That would really be the purpose of a legal agreement.
That would be the purpose of writing a separation agreement. If you weren't quite sure, if you thought, basically where it's going to provide protection is if you really think there's a chance for reconciliation. And you do hear that a lot of the time, that people want to have this trial separation to see maybe if there's an opportunity for them to work things out, right? So if they weren't quite sure and there was a lot of assets to protect, and so I would suggest at that point to write a contract. Speaking from my personal experience, we wrote up a separation agreement. At the end of the day, it really didn't mean a whole lot. But we did do that just to basically describe how we were going to act toward each other during that period of time. So if that's important to you and you're still communicating, you're still talking, then it is a good idea to kind of put those thoughts in writing, so you have that protection.
Well, Mike, thanks for bringing this topic to us today, because you clarified it. We needed to, sometimes we don't know. And I love also that you come from your own experience and you share that with us. And that's always appreciative.
Well, thanks for having me today, Georgianne.
Thanks for coming. And we will hope to see you soon.
Sounds good.
Anyone wants to talk to Mike or talk to anyone at the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, please call us at 1-800-310-9085. Thank you.